what's your perspective on pickleball and kind of its relationship and potential threat to tennis? We welcome CiCi Bellis to Backyard Tennis, an absolute trailblazer for the world of tennis. At 15, she stormed into the U.S. Open and was the youngest player to win a match there in nearly 2 decades. She got to career high number 35 in the world, and it is super interesting. Now she works in the venture capital world, and during the pandemic, she had her own like cooking Instagram. So is doing a lot of stuff outside of tennis now. Also is a tennis announcer, but super excited to get into it with CiCi here. We got to let the people know that it is your first time hosting, Kurt.
Oh yeah,
Dude,
I guess I haven't done one of these interviews.
yeah,
That's pretty consistent in the sports betting, but it's been a minute.
yeah. So where are you at right now? That's an insane backdrop.
Oh yeah, I'm in Bruhala. Best co-working vibes in all of North Dakota.
Yeah, I love it. And I already gave the intro for CiCi. But yeah, we got Cart. So the connection with CiCi, you definitely probably made this happen, in one way or another to like connect with CiCi. What was your connection with CiCi?
I don't remember how I met her, but we both work in venture capital, and venture capital is not a big like professional community. And yeah, she invests in some cool like sports tech and health tech companies, and so we catch up, I think like once a quarter. And obviously we have both have different tennis backgrounds. I don't know if I'd call my background much of a tennis background compared to hers. She'd probably stop me in 20 minutes, but uh, yeah, really just venture capital.
Yeah, and that'll be an angle definitely to talk about today. Is like, what is venture capital? I feel like your guys' world is a super unique world where it has just kind of like came about in the last, I don't know, couple of decades, or at least like more prevalent in the last couple of decades, specifically more recently. Um, but yeah, when CiCi comes in, we will resume the conversation with her. On CiCi,
Good. How are you?
Hey,
doing
what's
very
up?
well. Um,
Good.
I I already gave an interview, or an introduction, I should say, for you, CiCi. So we'll
Okay.
kind of go into this a little bit more casually.
Yeah.
But
Perfect.
thank you so much for coming on. We were talking about the connection that Cart and you had. But what exactly do you do currently for work?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on. Excited to chat. Yeah. So for work, run a sports and health focused venture capital firm. So we invest in early stage, kind of human performance startups. So anything under the kind of sports and health tech umbrella. Usually, Series A investments. We do some later stage seed. But yeah, excited to be supporting kind of the next stage of entrepreneurs in those spaces.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Um, that you're specifically kind of working on like sports. Having the background in tennis that you have, and it's your own company, Carton Capital or Carton Capital. Um, how did you get the idea of like starting your own thing rather than kind of going on with someone else and kind of learning the ropes from someone else?
Yeah, so when I stopped playing tennis professionally, I actually did join an early stage sports tech focus firm. Was there for about 4 years, did my MBA while I was there, and then kind of just saw an opportunity in the broader kind of health and wellness market alongside sports. So really kind of got the itch to build a firm on my own and invest in those spaces. So yeah, I had a really great time at that firm and felt like I kind of absorbed as much as I could in those 4 years, and then wanted to try it on my own.
Yeah, that's super cool. Um, in 2017, Carter was on the team. I was on the team. But we went to a D3 school, Division 3 tennis. We played whatnot at Concordia College in Moorhead. Anyways, our spring break trip, we went down to the USTA National Campus, and we have our matches down there. It's like 4 or 5 matches, and there was a Cabra alum. I should have pulled the name and got the name, but there's a Cabra alum, Concordia Cabra alum, who works at the USTA National Center. So he
Okay.
gave us a tour of the facility, So we're walking through, and there's a weight training area, and he's like, yeah, and that's CiCi Bellis and Tommy Paul training. And we're just like look over because he's giving us the tour, and like you two are just like, warming up or whatever. Do you remember training down there with Tommy Paul?
Not that specific day, but yeah, I mean, we trained together for a while. He was down in Boca Raton when I was down there when the USTA was initially based down there. So yeah, trained with them for a few years down there, and then we both moved up to Lake Nona when the USTA was moved up there, and they built the national campus. And I think he only trained there for a couple of years before he went and did private coaching back down in Boca. But yeah, he's awesome. I like grew up playing with him and training with him.
What's just like what are the general opinions of like the different training sites around the country for professional players? Like, where's everyone's favorite places to train?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say like the most famous, or I guess like the most well-known, is the USTA, obviously, but there's a bunch of like private training academies. There's a lot of players are down in Boca that work with a few coaches and fitness trainers down there. There's a lot in Charleston. There's a bunch down in Miami, SoCal, like LA area. So I would say those are kind of the biggest ones. I would say most pro players across the country are in one of those bases. Atlanta is a big one too.
What are
Yeah.
the?
Did you ever think about
Sorry,
Did you
Card.
ever think about training elsewhere outside of the US?
Um, Not super deeply, I guess. I when I was over in Europe for like the French Open and Wimbledon, when I was playing those tournaments every year, usually I would go to an academy over in Spain before the French to like train on red clay or things like that if I had a week here and there. But yeah, never super seriously did I consider training outside of the US.
And I feel like the one spot that a lot of people train at right now is the Rafa Nadal Tennis Academy. It seems like the younger generation is like really gravitating towards that, and kind of it's interesting to see how he kind of builds his brand. But so you're that was a great unreal question, Carter. But about the different spots around the U.S. for facilities, what is it about those facilities that like draws you to them? Like, why are they popular? Like, what draws you to those specific like 5 or 6 that you referenced?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it has to be a combination of like a really good atmosphere, environment. The coaching has to be really strong. Most of the time, there's like a fitness component to it. So whether it's fitness trainers that are tied into the academy, or like ones that work closely with players in the academy and maybe train a few players, things like that. So I would say it kind of has to be like a one-stop shop. USTA is great because obviously we have a million courts. We've got fitness trainers, tennis coaches, PTs, mental coaches, like everything you could possibly need. So that's why I gravitated and really trained at USTA my whole career. But I would say, even the private academies or like training centers, they're pretty much a one-stop shop. So I feel like that's a big component for players to think about. So they don't have to think, hey, I need to be here at 10 a.m. for tennis, but at 8 a.m. I need to be here for fitness. And then at 2 p.m. I need to be here for PT, things like that, and kind of be driving around or traveling around for that. It's nice to have everything kind of in one area.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. And is for your specific experience, was there like a coach or someone who reached out to you, or maybe your family that you like, attached to or gravitated towards to a little bit more, and like went there?
That's a good question. I would say, pretty much at the start of the first time I really ever played pro tournaments, I was working with a coach that I got connected to through a mutual friend, and he was like literally my coach pretty much my whole career. So I kind of stuck with one, which was great, and got super lucky. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to like meet coaches now, and I worked with a few coaches at USTA throughout the years, as well as kind of like sounding boards with my personal coach. So yeah, it was kind of a mix, but I had a great setup for sure.
And you went into tennis, and I would say like one of the highlights of your WTA career was you were the youngest. I think you're 15 years old, and you won a main draw at the U.S. Open, which is insane. And I'm sure I before this I was looking at different podcasts. I'm sure everyone asked this question to you, but like, what was that experience like? maybe for the backyard tennis listener who hasn't heard your answers before.
Yeah, totally. It was crazy for sure. I mean, I had not even played a WTA level match at that point. I think I'd played one pro circuit level tournament, like a 10K, like tiny. At that time when I was 14 earlier that year, and I turned 15 and then played the US Open a couple months later. So I, really had no pro experience. So, I won the U.S. National Junior Hardcourt tournaments, which got me a wild card into the U.S. Open. And so it was kind of like my first experience really playing a pro tournament, which was amazing. But yeah, I mean, it was wild. A lot of press and media, and a lot of learnings from like after the match and understanding kind of the media side of tennis. But yeah, it was overall a really cool experience. To be 15 doing that was certainly a lot, but it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, so speaking of the media side of tennis, you've kind of dabbled in that a little bit. Like, do you think you're going to continue to do that? Like, do you want to build, like maybe it's like a side hustle, maybe it becomes the main thing eventually? Like how you thinking about that?
um I would Are you referring to like broadcasting?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's something I do probably, 5, 6 times a year. I work with Tennis Channel and CBS Sports to do broadcasting segments. So yeah, I probably go out to LA a few times a year during big tournaments and work with them. And then with CBS Sports is more a remote thing that, a like shorter type of analyst role. So it's definitely something I can do, alongside Carton, which is awesome. And yeah, I feel like it, is beneficial for a lot of reasons. I love continuing to um, support tennis and the sport, and yeah, I think it's good overall.
And this was probably like 2 or 3 years back, but I guess not to try to get long-winded here, but so kind of how backyard tennis was created is a bunch of buddies of ours, kind of our friend group. We essentially, or I created this league, and they all kind of joined in, where we would essentially bet with like fake money on different matches throughout the year. So we would pick a weekly match, and you could either do 10, 20, or $30, one, two, or three, and we would keep track. I would keep track on a Google spreadsheet who's in the lead. And by the way, Cart was our season one champion. He
Oh,
won
nice.
he won a '69 Chevy car. It was like a $70 like car, whatnot. I don't know. I was
Love it.
like, but so anyways, during those weeks, we would tune in, or I would tune in to the most random matchups. I got hooked to tennis because of that. So every single week, I would watch different matches, and we got to the Cleveland Open, which is a WTA 250, which is a smaller tournament, only the women's side. And you were announcing in that
Oh
tournament.
yeah.
In I was listening to the match, and I can't remember who it was. It was probably like the semis or finals, because our match was that match,
Oh,
and
that's so funny.
and you're announcing it, and I was super impressed with the level. Like it kept me engaged. I was like, and I think I threw out even a tweet like, hey, like CiCi's an unreal like announcer. What kind of got you into broadcasting and wanting to do that route of like announcing?
Yeah. Well, thank you. First of all, yeah, I really enjoy it. I think it's really enjoyable for me if I do it sparingly. I don't think it's something I could do full time, because it is really taxing. Like you go in for like 4 or 5 hour shift and you are like mentally drained. Like there is nothing you can think about the rest of the day because you have to be so on for those like 4 or 5 hours. But yeah, I mean, I had an agent reach out to me right when I was considering stopping tennis. And he was like, hey, this is a great like next move in your career and career path, and can be done alongside, work, unless you want to make it full time. And I was like, hey, I don't want to make it full time. I just want to do it a few times a year. And so, yeah, he's been great. He initially got me connected with Tennis Channel and then recently CBS Sports. So it's been a fun journey so far.
And what kind of prep goes into announcing, a tournament? Because you're gonna have to like brush up on all of the players. You don't really know. Is it a lot of like kind of like, I wouldn't say cramming, but like day of or day before preparation?
For sure. Yeah. You pretty much prep right when the schedule comes out for the next day. So usually it's, the afternoon before, and then you have like afternoon, and sometimes it's really late in the evening, depending on the time zone. So it depends, but yeah, pretty much cramming, depending on what court you're working on the next day. You have to work on, the players, their previous, few tournaments, game styles, tactics, matchups, things like that. But yeah, it's a ton of cramming, kind of like from day before all the way through like the morning of, and when you're announcing.
And in tennis is brutal because all it's a worldwide sport, so you have last names from everywhere, so super difficult pronunciations. Another sport similar to that I really like to follow is MMA, specifically the UFC. And Joe Rogan is an announcer. He loves, mixed martial arts. He's a big fan of that, so he announces like the biggest events for the UFC. And there's some clips of him making absolute just butcheries of their
Yeah.
last name. So like you don't want to be on the wrong side of that. So like just prepping those last names. Is there any specific last name that you're like, oh my gosh, I just can't say this, so I got to come up with a different solution here?
Oh, that's a really good question. I can't think of one off the top of my head. The good thing is on the ATP and WTA websites, they have the person like saying their last name with the pronunciation. So I try and like go over that a few times if it's a tricky one, but that's one of the harder parts for sure is making sure that you have the pronunciation down. You don't sound like an idiot on air.
Yeah, the WTA and ATP are really clutch for that, because when we're talking about the players, like I want to say the players' names right too. Like if we're talking about someone, so you listen to it, you're like, and it's like a little bit muffled sometimes. You're like, what did they say? Like
Yeah,
what's going on?
have to listen to it a few times.
And and so generating questions, I'm always like, all right, I don't know everything in the world. So, you find a little bit of an AI search engine like Chatgpt or Grok, and they pumped this out, that I was like, okay, I did not know that about CiCi. Um, did you create an Instagram cooking show during the pandemic?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I love cooking and baking. Like that's one of my main hobbies. So yeah, during the pandemic, I mean, we had so much time, and I was just like, hey, let me like, start making videos and do that. It was so much fun for. I did it for about a year. It was a
Okay.
blast.
Did you have like pretty good traction with it, or is it just more of kind of like, oh, I just really like to do this and explore this kind of field?
Yeah, I wasn't trying to like go viral or anything. I was just more, enjoying it. So yeah, I like a few thousand followers, nothing crazy, but yeah, just really enjoyed kind of making the videos and filming while I was cooking. It was really fun.
And in one kind of part of your career, is you had like a few like different like nagging injuries that put you on hold, or and even maybe potentially had you retire earlier than you would have planned on. Was that is that true? And two, how did you mentally prepare for kind of the professional world maybe a little bit quicker than maybe like a 30-year-old, or as people typically retire?
Yeah, good question. I did have a ton of injuries in my career, wrist and elbow injuries that kept me out of the game for a while. That is the reason why I stopped playing. Just had few surgeries, wasn't really ever the same. Was still having kind of the same pain. Was in like a similar kind of cycle of like surgery, rehab, get back playing, and it wasn't the same. So I was ready to kind of move on once I decided it was time. And yeah, it felt like a long time coming. So I felt like more prepared, I would say, than, if it was just a random injury and, I had to make a decision to stop playing. So I felt more prepared on that sense. And then, yeah, I immediately wanted to start working. So I got an internship right away at a family office nearby, and really enjoyed it. And that's how I met the firm that I eventually worked for a few years. So yeah, I think, getting into the workforce right away was important for me. I was also, so I initially committed to play tennis at Stanford. And then about a year before I was supposed to go, I turned pro, and I completed my degree online actually while I was, excuse me, playing full time. And sorry. And then kind of at the tail end of that undergrad degree is when I, you know, kind of had those injuries, decided it was, maybe time to try a new path. And so felt like it was one, it was good timing with finishing the undergrad degree, but two, I had in the back of my mind that, it might be time to try something new for a little while. So felt like both timing and something I was prepared for, I guess. And then I like immediately got into the workforce.
And you're posted up in New York City, right? Or are you
I'm
down
down
in
in Florida.
You're down in Florida?
Mhm.
What what influenced you to kind of stay there when my slip up New York City, like when that is probably the hub, or maybe even California, Southern California is more so the hub for venture capital?
Yeah, so my family's from the Silicon Valley, and that's where my parents still are. So I go and visit them like at least once a quarter for that reason. Sorry, goodness. And yeah, so I try and make it out there a lot. That's where most of my like network and connections are, which is great. But my husband's actually in law school at the University of Florida, so we're here mainly for that reason right now. And then once he finishes up, yeah, we'll figure out where we want to end up. Might be back in California or maybe South Florida. We'll kind of figure it out.
And if it kind of a random question, but if you could play a dream exhibition match versus any player, um, past or present, who would you play that exhibition match
Oh
against?
my gosh, that is such a good question. Gosh, maybe Chrissy Everett. I think that would be really fun. She was my mentor growing up. I actually did play in. She hosted an exhibition. She didn't play in it, but I was one of the players that participated. So I just think she's incredible. She was such a great mentor for me. So that'd be a good choice, I think.
In When I asked past or present, it kind of like, oh, it just kind of brought up the memory of like, Sinner and Alcaraz, kind of two present players. Um, is there any present player that you're really interested in kind of keeps you engaged with tennis?
That's a good question. I try and keep track of all, the Americans coming up and the Americans playing. On the men's side, I really, love watching Alcaraz and Sinner. I think, that's been the most fun kind of like rivalry to watch over the last few years. So definitely keeping that top of mind. But yeah, I mean, men and women's, most of the Americans, I'm still good friends with a lot of them in terms of, ones that I grew up with. And there are some new ones that I don't know as well, but the ones that I have trained with in the past, try and follow them as much as I can. And yeah, I know there's a lot of younger ones coming up too. But yeah, I think the rivalry that's the most fun is definitely Alcaraz and Sinner to watch.
Yeah.
So yesterday I saw something that Djokovic said that he's looking forward to the 2028 Olympics. Like that's what's keeping him going. Before the Olympics, do you think he's going to get another one? Do you think he's going to get number 25, or do you think he's going to start sliding?
That's a really good question. I think he has one more in him. I'm so surprised to hear that he's going to continue through the next Olympics for sure. Um, Yeah, gosh, that's a tough one. I think he had a decent chance in Paris. Like he was playing well. A lot of things were kind of clicking for him. I think he's got one more in him.
Yeah, yeah, and I hope he does. I
Yeah.
feel like just being able to watch that and witness that and be kind of in the generation of that, it's good for tennis. And bringing up the Sinner versus Alcaraz rivalry, or hopefully rivalry, um, it's not, it is great for my viewing as well. Like I'm super interested and engaged, but it's almost that I want it more for kind of that surface level fan. Like, hey, how can you bring in more people? What's good for the sport? Because I'm going to be interested in tennis no matter what, and I'm interested in 0 through maybe 100, like that sort of range. But trying to get the entire sport to kind of grow and prosper is why I'm excited about that specific matchup. Um, what do you think the sport of tennis, maybe the governing bodies, can do to kind of promote and catapult the sport forward?
It's a great question. Funny enough, I'm on the board of the USTA, so that is literally my job. And we're doing a lot of things. We have a serious court issue in the U.S., meaning there's 129 players to one court in terms of ratios. So we have a major court issue. That's something we're focused on. We're trying to get more rackets into the hands of younger kids. I think that's something we definitely need to focus on, and just trying to grow grassroots tennis, I think, is the biggest thing. Something that definitely helps that is those players that kids and even players entering the sport at any age can look up to. A lot of times that's American players that we're focused on. We've got an amazing kind of Rolodex of American players in the top 100 right now on both the men's and women's side. So we're leaning on them a lot for sure. But yeah, I mean, definitely even players from around the world that I think, Alcaraz and Sinner being kind of that next generation after Rafa Nadal, Roger Federer, Djokovic. We need that. That was, such a strong generation, and for viewership reasons and obviously level reasons. If there was a drop off after that, viewership would suffer for sure. So I'm hopeful that Alcaraz and Sinner can keep that up.
Mhm.
Just for reference, do you know off the top of your head like what the court to player ratio is in like Western Europe, for example? Like how far behind are we?
That's a good question. I don't know the exact ratio off the top of my head. I know we're not that far behind though. I think it's more for us, like we're really focused on kind of refurbishing courts too. That's something we're focused on. And also trying to like unlock courts. Maybe it's, at a local park that, only limits access to people in that neighborhood, or like a high school tennis courts, or, something like that, where you can make it more accessible to people outside of that group that's allowed to use it. So we're trying to focus on areas like that in addition to building new courts. But yeah, no, that's a good question. I don't know the exact ratio in Europe or other countries.
Yeah. Maybe so building a court is what, like 20,000, 30,000 bucks for a hard court. Is hard true, like more or less, do you know?
More, and also more goes into the maintenance, so it's more expensive overall.
Okay. Yeah, because there's like two things there. Like there's this argument that you always hear about like American players just being hitters, not players, and maybe if we played on clay more, we'd be more well-rounded players. But that doesn't feed into the problem of not having enough courts based on the cost. But maybe like I'd actually like to hear from you, um, as an investor. Like, have you come across any promising ideas around making courts cheaper? I'm not sure if that's like a big enough market to build a venture-backed business, but I don't know. Maybe you've seen some cool potential solutions.
That's a great question. I haven't actually seen any solutions trying to make like the building of courts cheaper, whether it's like more of an infrastructure play or, something in the process of like building the courts. But yeah, I that might be an interesting space to build in. Again, probably not venture scalable, but certainly needed in the space. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
It another I'm getting to my questions where I'm like, hey, I got some creativity here from my perspective. But if you were to write a book, what would the title be of yeah, if you were to write a book, what would the title of your book be for your life so far?
Wow. Geez, that is a great question. For my life so far, I don't know, maybe like something to do with how to pivot into a different industry, probably something along those lines.
Yeah.
And
And
taking, I think it's been nice for me to be able to take a lot of the like qualities and characteristics of previous careers and bring them into new ones.
Just I'm going to interrupt you, Isaac, to expand on that too. How is I wanted to ask this earlier too. Um, how is like playing tennis still a part of your life? In our previous calls, you had mentioned like it's come up in like um, getting an LP over the line. Like maybe it's just that. Like I don't know. Like how much do you still play, and how important is it to you still?
Yeah, super important for sure. I try and play once a week, once every 2 weeks. My husband played in college, so we go out and play all the time, and yeah, like play with my LPs. Some of our portfolio companies have people on their team that play tennis, so try and integrate it as much as I can into what I'm doing now. So yeah, I'd say once a week, once every 2 weeks is a good kind of ratio for me now. I don't have any pain when I'm playing, which is great. So can play pretty much full out, which is awesome. So yeah, I really enjoy it. I definitely, you know, think it's still a great workout and have a lot of fun. I know like pickleball and padel are becoming huge now. I play pickleball with my family all the time too. So try and play as many racket sports as possible.
what's your perspective on pickleball and kind of its relationship and potential threat to tennis?
I don't think it's a threat at all. I think growth of racket sports is going to grow tennis in general, and that's what we've seen. So yeah, I'm a big fan and proponent of just getting rackets into people's hands, no matter or paddles, whatever type of um, equipment it is. I think is going to help just the growth of racket sports and have uh, shared growth. I would say.
Two things that I think are lacking in the tennis world, and its ability to really explode even more than it's growing, and it has grown, but to really explode. That golf is a great shining example, has been specifically like the content world. If you go onto golf YouTube, there's probably a half a dozen content creators. For example, Good Golf, Grant Horvat, Bryson DeChambeau, who is also professional. Phil Mickelson has a really nice YouTube presence. Foreplay with Barstool has a really nice presence on YouTube. That these people are really getting more people to be engaged with the sport. And even for myself, I like watching this YouTube golf. I'm not a golfer. I'm so bad at golf, but they keep me kind of engaged. And with Bryson, for example, he does his YouTube. Now I'm looking at when he's in a tournament over the weekend and seeing his results. I'm paying attention to that event now. Hey, who's playing, type of thing. And it's a great introduction to get myself, or maybe some of those surface level fans, into the sport. So content, and then also the second thing is the PGA Tour incentivizes, I think it's like the top 10 or 15 people who have, make an impact on social media somehow. I don't know how they measure it, but they'll like it, give them incentives like money. So like Tiger Woods is always like one of the top ones where they're like, hey, we're going to give you money just for like trying to engage with the world. Do you think that tennis will kind of get to that point, or do you think it's just two different, apples and oranges?
That's a great point and a great question. Completely agree. I think the like governing bodies like the ATP and WTA themselves could do a way better job at marketing the players. WTA especially, I think they do honestly a really poor job at marketing players. So I think that is one avenue. I love the model that the PGA has of incentivizing players to kind of help get the word out. I think that's great. I think a lot of top tennis players do that, just organically. But yeah, to try and figure out like co-collaboration or co-branding, you know, content would be beneficial across the board. Yeah, it's so tough. They came out with Breakpoint. I heard it didn't get great reviews on Netflix in terms of viewership. So I don't know if it's just people trying to, or people that just aren't familiar with the players, but it's something that tennis has been struggling with for a long time. And I don't know the exact way to kind of get around that, since it's been a problem forever. So I think it's Roddick's podcast is doing well. There are a few tennis podcasts that have come out in the recent couple of years, which has been fun to see. But yeah, I think there's a lot of issues with content around tennis, and I don't have the answers of how to kind of get around that. It's a tough space for sure.
Yeah. And
What does I see content as being like an enabler for like the bottom, anyone outside of like the top 150 or whatever the mark is for uh, actually making real sustainable money in tennis. Like most people don't make money. Maybe content is one of those things, but outside of that, like what are some things that the USTA is doing to try to make people's dreams of making it in the ATP or WTA possible?
Yeah, we have a great grant program. We're trying to like democratize access to tennis across all of the sections in the U.S. Trying to make tournaments more accessible for younger players and more fun, honestly, as well. So like even trying to we do have a retention problem with young players, so trying to work on that in a variety of different ways. Number one is electric line calling. That's something we've been working on really closely. I think one of the main reasons why we have churn for young players is because they don't have a great experience at tournaments. One of the big reasons for that is cheating, unfortunately, in the juniors. So I'm sure both of you guys experienced that growing up. So we're working on that. And then we do have a great program at USTA where we have, kind of the top juniors come in, we train them, but really, giving extra attention and whether it's through grants or refurbishment or coaching content to academies across the country and the sections. So I think that's the biggest thing for us, is focusing on the sections and their kind of growth and promotion of youth tennis.
Do you remember any specific line calls back in your like junior career that you're like, wow, that was a crazy line call, and maybe this person went pro or something like that?
I don't know if I remember one specific line call, but yeah, there was, that group that you always knew were going to cheat you as much as they could in these matches, for sure. I think everyone has that experience. So you always, the players that are going to do it, and you just have to be ready for it for sure.
So what are those things? Maybe let's say you're talking to, maybe a 12 or 14 or 16-year-old kid. What advice would you give them going into a match where you're going to be playing someone who's cheating?
If there's not going to be refs, it's going to be rough. And I think you just have to, go in with a super open mind, understand that it's a high, possibility that this is going to happen. And what I always tried to focus on is like shrinking the court if I knew I was playing a cheater. So like aiming a foot inside where I would normally aim if there was literally going to be no refs, because, it would take a lot for someone to make blatant line calls, like, right up the middle, or, a couple feet from the sideline. There are players that did it for sure, but usually there would be roaming refs enough to where they would also help focus on, the players that they like. These refs know, kind of the typical cheaters that come through. Like we, had really similar refs across the board throughout, like 12 and unders, throughout 14 and unders, and they kind of, took notice of the players that would usually be involved in some sort of like line call dispute or something like that. So I think they helped and kept their eye on players as well. But yeah, I think keep an open mind, shrink the court as much as you can. And like first chance that you feel like it's a bad call, just try and get a ref near your court.
And I got two questions left. Cart, if you have any questions, feel free to give them whatnot. My first question is, so for our audience or potential people watching this, is there a good way for them to kind of follow your journey? Is there any socials that you want to promote, or any upcoming things that they should be looking forward to kind of in your journey?
I mean, socials for sure. Yeah, I'm CiCi Bellis across like most socials. So yeah, definitely can follow me there. I'm not like the most active on like Instagram or social media, but try and post as much as I can. It's just weird like being like not a professional athlete anymore, and then just kind of having these followers and being like, wow, like what am I supposed to post about now? But yeah, I think socials are great. And then yeah, in terms of big things, I mean, always trying to post things about what I'm doing at Carton as much as possible. And I'd say that's the biggest thing that I'm focused on. And then I try and post whenever I'm doing broadcast work as well.
Nice. And are there any shout outs that you would like to send out into the world?
No, I don't think so. None that come to mind.
Our shout out is you for coming on. Thank you so much for spending your time with us and sharing your journey. Thank you so much, CiCi.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.